They called him a failure before the awakening was even over. Jiang Yan had returned 2.5 years before Nanrang City's destruction, but instead of awakening as a chosen genius, he received 2 useless F-rank classes. The entire arena laughed. What they didn't know is that in his past life, Jiang Yan had a divine ability called Modify. With just one word, he could turn trash into treasure, weak skills into miracles, and broken weapons into divine artifacts. Last time, revealing that power ruined his life, but this time he will hide it. And while everyone mocks the weakest F-rank student, he will quietly become the monster no genius can defeat. It all begins in the city of Nanrong, where a giant demonic rift marks the day of the student's awakening. Inside a bus, our protagonist looks calm while the girls around him are quite excited. Suddenly, the young man's face changes to an expression of shock, as if he had just woken up from a dream. Amidst the crowd on the transport, he finally realizes that he has truly returned to the past. Jiang Yan remembers that this is his graduation day, when the entire class went to awaken their classes. With this, he understands that he is 2.5 years before the complete downfall of the city of Nanrong. 12 years ago, demon lairs appeared out of nowhere in the human world, bringing chaos and ruin. When humans tried to fight back, they discovered that firearms and nuclear weapons were useless. But upon getting closer to the lairs, people began to awaken classes and combat abilities. After 5 years of intense battles, the awakened finally managed to take control of the entrances. And as a result, the structure of human society completely changed to adapt to the new reality. Now every 18-year-old student goes to a demon lair for their class awakening. Classes are divided into combat, support, and creation, but the creation ones are seen as the worst. The protagonist remembers that he awakened exactly an F-rank creation class in his previous life, except that his innate ability was a divine one called Modify, which could turn junk into treasure. In his past life, he revealed this power and was immediately summoned by the most powerful leaders. The young man helped them modify ability names and equipment, transforming everything into divine artifacts. However, such a powerful ability made them fear him, and they locked him up to control him. That night, a level 96 dragon-shaped magical beast appeared in Nanrong. Being on the verge of fading away, he used his ability to modify the word revival, and thus he was reborn. Back in the present, the bus approaches the station, and a voice tells all the students to get ready. Now that he has been given a second chance, the young man decides that with his divine ability, he can only rely on himself. So, he promises that in this new life, he will never tell anyone about his powerful ability. The vehicle now crosses the infected zone, a place completely taken over by magical energy. Keeping his power secret is also a way to protect his family, friends, and the entire city. As for himself, he will quietly develop his skills to get stronger and save everyone. They finally arrive at their destination, the headquarters of the Hunter Association in the city of Nanrong. The students get off the bus, and one of them is afraid of awakening a useless creation class. A boy named Yanting is the center of attention, as everyone thinks he will get a combat class. But Yang Hongwei, a classmate of Jiang Yan, says it doesn't matter because even geniuses can have terrible classes. With that, the teacher approaches the protagonist and tells him to take the lead and set a good example. As the group walks up the stairs, an instructor explains that he just needs to place his hands on the crystal ball. Right after, an official announces that Jiang Yan from Nanrong School No. 1 should go ahead and awaken. Then, the protagonist walks calmly toward the center of the Grand Awakening arena. He already knows what is going to happen and thinks that, compared to the others, he has known the future for a long time. 2 female students comment that Jiang Yan has innate magical power and will become very strong with the combat class. But the teacher looks worried and hopes his student doesn't awaken a useless creation class. Yang Hongwei and his friend mock him, saying that a poor kid from the slums will certainly have a bad class. The young man positions himself in front of the large crystal sphere, which emits a powerful purple energy. Without a second thought, he places his hand on the crystal ball, which immediately begins to glow intensely. At that moment, a large pillar of golden energy rises to the skies, completely enveloping the boy. In the air, the word Tinker appears on a holographic screen, revealing his first class. His profile shows his name and that the awakened class is Tinker, a creation type, and F rank. The crowd is in shock, and the teacher can't believe that such a good student awakened an F rank. The 2 bullies burst out laughing and mock him for getting such a weak creation class. Yang Hongwei goes crazy with happiness because after 3 years, he finally surpassed his rival. The official tries to be positive and says that Tinker isn't that bad and that he can make money doing repairs. But suddenly, a new blue energy appears around the protagonist as he holds an orb of light. The man is amazed and shouts that the crystal ball is still reacting, indicating a dual class. The teacher is shocked because dual classes are very rare, and whoever awakens them becomes a genius. With that, a new, even stronger wave of power begins to swirl around the young man. To everyone's surprise, the word farmer appears in the air, revealing his second class. The profile is updated and now shows that he has the Tinker and Farmer classes, both F rank. Everyone's jaw drops as a rare duo awakened got 2 F rank classes, one worse than the other. The bullies can't stop laughing and call him a genius for having 2 F classes at the same time. The teacher regrets the boy's bad luck, thinking that a great prodigy turned into a complete disappointment. Meanwhile, Jiang Yan walks away from the platform without caring at all about people's reactions. He asks himself if he is useless and unlucky, but a smirk shows that he doesn't believe that. The protagonist knows his classes are the worst, but he awakened an ability that defies the heavens. His innate ability is Modify, which can change one word in the name of an item or skill. He demonstrates how the farmer's skill Accelerate Growth can be completely altered. With the change, the new technique Revive can bring targets back and heal all their wounds. The young man smiles confidently, knowing that if he uses this ability wisely, it will be his greatest weapon. Looking at the freshman rankings, he promises that he will soon be first on both lists. With a determined look, he warns that everyone will feel the fear of being dominated by an F-rank class. After all, the resources he will receive for being first will be massive and will help him become the strongest. The story takes us to the novice training base, a place for the newly awakened to level up. Besides being a safe location, this is where novices get the most experience points to evolve. Breaking the record also gives bonus points for the provincial tournament and increases his chances at the university. Because of this, his plan is not only to complete the training but also to break the record to secure his spot. At the entrance, an official reads Jiang Yan's profile and comments on his 2F rank creation classes. The man then asks if he is sure he wants to challenge the dungeon alone since the difficulty isn't low. Especially for an F rank class, it would be best to team up with other classmates to increase the chances of success. But the protagonist confidently replies that he is sure and asks to receive the novice equipment. The officials whisper among themselves, thinking the boy is having trouble accepting his new reality. Then, one of them hands over the novice equipment, which consists of a sword and a pair of leather boots. The young man remembers that in his past life he only received the sword, so the boots are an extra out of goodwill. The iron sword gives 5 attack power, while the leather boots increase speed by 3. Even though it's a gesture of goodwill, the young man feels he is still being underestimated because of his classes. Before going in, the official warns that if he can't handle the rabbits, he can ask the knights for help. He just thanks him for the reminder, and turns to enter the dungeon with the sword on his back. As the gates close, he thinks that soon everyone will be amazed by what he is about to do. Already inside the dungeon, the protagonist activates his innate ability, Modify, to upgrade his items. His iron sword becomes a steel one, and the leather boots transform into wind boots with better stats. With his new sword in hand, he thinks he could turn it into a holy or magical sword. But considering the internal surveillance, he decides it's best not to draw too much attention for now. After all, he already suffered the consequences of leaking his talent in his past life and doesn't want to repeat the mistake. As much as a level 1 item is modified, it won't be super strong, but for now it's enough. The training ground is divided into 3 sections: the basic area, the advanced area, and the final boss area. And to get the record and the extra points, you have to reach the dreaded area of the powerful boss. To do this, he needs to defeat a ram rabbit, which is the level boss and is much stronger than the others. In front of him appear several level 1 rabbits with very hard crystal armor on their heads. His goal is to reach level 5, so he needs to defeat at least 100 of these magical creatures. Suddenly, one of the rabbits lets out a battle cry, and all the others prepare for the attack. With that, a giant horde of rabbits rushes toward him, ready to take the young man down. The protagonist knows that only after level 5 will he be qualified for the next big stage. The Cyclone Wolf base is a nightmare for novices, but a great place for him to level up. So, without wasting time, the young man moves forward with his sword, striking down every rabbit in sight. He believes that, with this, he can even reach level 10 all at once by clearing the dungeon. After all, after level 10 he will get that ultimate legendary divine rank ability. With this new power, he will be able to create magical beasts and become even stronger than before. While fighting, he remembers Yang Hongwei, his rival from his past life, who must have already awakened. Returning to the arena, the official calls Yang Hongwei's name for his class awakening. The bully is nervous but just wants a better class than his rival so he can brag. He places his hand on the sphere. An explosion of power even greater than Jiang Yan's occurs. In the air, the word Berserker appears in fiery letters, revealing his powerful awakened class. His profile shows that it is an A-rank combat class, making the bully go crazy with happiness. The other students are shocked, because he was second for 3 years and has now turned things around. With a smug smile, he warns that from now on, no one can call him second anymore. Because in Class 1 of the senior year, there is now only a first place, and that spot is definitely his. His name is Yang Hongwei, and he declares himself as the new and only number 1 in the class for everyone. His flatterer friends quickly congratulate him and say that Jiang Yan has no way to compete against him. The new genius asks where the F-rank underperformer is, as he should be there to witness his glory. One of his followers says he saw him heading toward the novice training base alone. So the bully decides to go there with his friends to help him get through the dungeon. But everyone knows he just wants to see Jiang Yan embarrass himself and take advantage of the situation. The teacher remembers how hard the boy worked, studying late into the night in the classroom. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, the young man enters a forest area and wonders where the monsters are. He also remembers the boy in the magical training room, enduring the intense challenge at the highest level. Back at the arena, a mysterious boy says that even with an F-rank class, his old rival won't be limited. This is Wang Haofeng, the school's runner-up in arts and literature, losing only to the protagonist. He says that no one knows better than him how desperately the young man strives to be the best. With that, he remembers the freshman finals when the two had a great battle in the gym. On that day, the protagonist completely won him over with his grit and defeated him fairly. Now he sees that Yang Hongwei wants to cause trouble and decides to go take a look to protect his rival. The rival he acknowledges can only be defeated by him, and anyone who dares touch the boy will have to deal with him. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Jiang Yan is exhausted because attracting and fighting 100 monsters was a lot. He is sitting on a mound of defeated rabbits, and now only the king is missing to reach level 5. Suddenly, the great level 5 Ram Rabbit King appears with its elemental crystal armor. But the young man has internal injuries and is at level 4 with 94% experience. The giant rabbit prepares to attack with all its might and crush the adventurer once and for all. With a powerful leap, the creature lunges at the protagonist with its flaming crystal head. The young man knows that if he fights the monster head-on, he will certainly lose this unequal battle. But he already has a plan and watches the Rabbit King activate its innate flame headbutt ability. Exactly as he expected, the young man activates his modify ability to turn the tide in his favor. He changes Flame Headbutt to Flame Head Detonation, a self-detonating technique. With the change, the Rabbit King's head begins to glow intensely, ready to explode at any moment. Suddenly, a massive explosion occurs, taking down everything around the creature in a light show. The protagonist levels up to 5 and smiles, saying that his self-detonation skill is quite useful. Outside, a big screen announces that Jiang Yan broke the record with 26 minutes and 9 seconds. Yang's friends are in shock since the previous record was 1 hour and 17 minutes longer. The bully can't believe it, and with his dual F classes, he shouts to everyone that the boy cheated. He thinks that clearing the dungeon by cheating will completely ruin his old rival's reputation. Therefore, Yang Hongwei decides that he himself will expose the big scam and unmask the protagonist. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, the young man uses his revival skill to heal all his injuries. He knows that the boss of the next phase is a giant wolf, much stronger than the rabbit he faced. The Cyclone Wolf King gave him a lot of trouble in his past life, and now is the time for payback. With his sword on his shoulder, he says that in this life he will gladly collect the interest from that monster. He then arrives at the Cyclone Wolf Base, a place known by everyone as a nightmare zone for novices. There, the normal wolves are from levels 6 to 9, and the king is level 10, a huge challenge for freshmen. If a regular novice chooses this base, they will get severely beaten since the strength of the Cyclone Wolves is quite high. But at the same time, the rewards this place offers are also absurdly good for everyone. Anyone who holds their ground in the base can get many points, and if they defeat the Wolf King, they can jump straight to level 10. And to give you an idea, a freshman normally takes 10 full days to reach that same level. However, clearing the base all at once takes you to level 10 and also awakens your second innate ability. Besides that, you also gain permission to level up alone in the wild, which is very important to get stronger. That's why the official asks if he's sure, because normally only groups of 6 at level 8 or 9 come here. He recalls that a genius with an A-rank class tried to do this and ended up badly hurt, missing the college exam. So he questions if a dual F-rank failure like the protagonist is there looking for his own downfall. Jiang Yan appreciates the concern but says he has already made up his mind and won't change it regarding the dungeon. The official gets annoyed and says he isn't worried, and if the boy wants to face the consequences, he won't stop him from entering. Even though he is underestimated, the young man won't stop just because a random dog is barking by the side of the road. As soon as he enters the arena, a pack of Cyclone Wolves appears, howling and ready for the big attack. Without a shred of fear, the protagonist runs toward the monsters to start the grand battle. With his glowing sword, he thinks it's been a long time, and that it is time to revisit the strength of his old friends. From above, the official watches and calls the boy a top-tier fool rarely seen in the world. He thinks the young man is overconfident and reckless for charging so blindly into the pack. With quick movements, the young man begins to strike the wolves, gaining 10 experience points for each one. The official is shocked by how easily he does it and notices that the boy didn't even use his class skills. Breaking into a cold sweat, he wonders if that boy with 2 F classes could actually be a great genius. Sometime later, the battlefield is covered with fallen creatures, and Jiang Yan rests on top of a pile of them. Observing the scene, the official is left speechless and finally understands that the boy is a true prodigy. Feeling embarrassed, he thinks he can't stay there, because if the young man sees him, he will certainly humiliate him in front of everyone. The protagonist at level 9 uses his revival skill since the intensity of the fight was extremely high. His technique restores him and completely heals all his wounds, but it costs 100 magic points. He notices that the wolves are much stronger than the rabbits, with superior speed, strength, and intelligence. Despite using the revival, the lingering H of the strikes is still in his body, but that doesn't matter to him now. To change his destiny in the world, this trivial pain is nothing worth mentioning at the moment. From afar, the Great Wolf King appears, and now it is time for a real battle between the two great kings. The giant creature bares its fangs and, with glowing eyes, prepares for the final showdown of the dungeon. The level 10 Cyclone Wolf King uses the power of the wind to speed up its charge and attack with more force. It has 2 powerful abilities, Wind Speed and Windblade Claw, for combat. Both techniques are quite strong but don't have much room for modification according to the protagonist. Trying to modify them forcefully could cause errors, so he wonders what he should do in this situation. The creature charges with everything it has, and the young man decides to settle the fight in the most direct and manly way possible. He takes off his shirt, revealing his muscular build, ready for the final clash with the boss. Besides having divine-level abilities, the protagonist is also first in literary and martial arts. With that, he charges into hand-to-hand combat against the Wolf King using all his great strength. Meanwhile, outside, Yang Hongwei and his friends are exhausted after facing the rabbits. An official appears and reprimands them for entering the advanced area without the proper permission to do so. The bully is furious and wonders how Jiang Yan managed to clear the dungeon so fast. Convinced that his rival cheated, he shouts at his friends to go after the protagonist. On the big screen, a new message announces that Jiang Yan defeated the Wolf King and broke another clearing record. Yang is astonished because the previous record was 1 hour and 29 minutes, and now it was cut in half. He drops to his knees in defeat, staring at the screen, unable to believe what just happened. With a look of hatred, he says that since the rival dares to cheat so blatantly, he will show no mercy. So he calls his friends to go to the Cyclone Wolf base and ruin the boy's reputation. In the arena, the defeated Wolf King is on the ground, having been taken down by the protagonist's sword. Jiang Yan has finally reached level 10 and can now awaken his long-awaited second innate ability. He gets 2 new skills, durability and the farmer technique, plant grafting. His profile is updated with his new abilities, and he finally got what he wanted so much. With a smile of satisfaction, the young man activates his modify ability once again for his plan. The 2 new abilities now appear on the modification screen, ready to be upgraded. He modifies plant grafting to universal grafting, a divine level ability. This technique can create contracted magical beasts and makes him much more powerful than before. With it, he can target 2 species and give birth to a new superior or primitive biological form. When the ability reaches level 10, the probability of creating a superior creature will be 100%. With this, powerful magical beasts can gain even stronger racial abilities and evolve. And with 2 A-class beasts, it's possible to create an S-class one that defies the heavens in power. Using a Beast Tamer scroll, he can contract the animal and have the most loyal battle pet. In his mind, he remembers the powerful people who controlled him in his past life because of his ability. Back in the present, the protagonist is covered in marks from the fight but has a determined look after the long battle. With his sword on his shoulder, he looks at the fallen wolves and says the harvest was good and that it is time to go. Suddenly, a very expensive magical crystal drops from the Wolf King, a rare and powerful reward. But he knows that everything in the training base belongs to the association, so he can't take it for himself. Only now that he is at level 10, he can go to the wild where everything he finds will be his. At that moment, a sharp H hits him, and he realizes his injuries are more serious than they seemed. Since the injury isn't fatal, he can't use revival, and going to the hospital would be too expensive. Without money, the best option is to intentionally knock himself out with his sword and then revive himself. However, the association knights are nearby, and doing that in front of them would draw too much attention. So he decides to find an isolated place to use his revival ability in secret. The young man then walks to the exit of the training arena to find a safer spot for himself. But to his surprise, a crowd of students is waiting outside the grand base. He wonders why there are so many people there and what they could be waiting for with such anxiety. In the middle of the crowd, someone points him out and identifies him as the freshman who broke all the records. With that, he understands that those are high school seniors attracted by his feats in the dungeon. Knowing that everyone is looking at him, the young man realizes he can't use his healing ability there. His injury worsens and completely stains his shirt, which will certainly be noticed by everyone around. He needs to find a way to get away from the crowd so he can heal without anyone around. Suddenly, an intense golden light shines and catches the attention of everyone in the grand city square. A boy awakens the Holy Angel class with gigantic wings that illuminate the entire surrounding area. The students are shocked because this is an S-rank support class, one of the rarest in the world. Right after, a girl named Yao Xinyu from the Yao family also awakens incredible power. The crowd is even more amazed since the Yao family is one of the most noble and powerful in the entire region. The girl's healing light hits the protagonist, and he feels his injuries closing up in an instant. The purple-haired girl stands out in the crowd with her aura of power and tranquility. He approaches her and thanks her for the healing, saying that his injury is almost completely cured. As a token of gratitude, he offers to fix her equipment and suggests they cooperate in the future. The girl smiles gently and accepts the offer, saying she will count on him if she needs repairs. But the peace is interrupted when Yang Hongwei and his friends show up, calling him a cheating fraud. With that, Yang Hongwei shouts to the crowd not to be fooled by the protagonist at all. He accuses the boy of cheating to get the record since he has 2 useless F-rank classes. The other students are shocked because an F-rank creation class has absolutely no combat power. The bully says it is impossible unless he had bought some very powerful equipment. With a mocking smile, he asks if his rival used dirty methods because he couldn't surpass him. But someone in the crowd reminds everyone that the young man is known for being a very poor student. Then the rival accuses him of defrauding the school's subsidies to look poor and gain advantages. The crowd begins to whisper with disgust, thinking the boy really defrauded the school's assistance programs. With a smirk, the protagonist asks if the rival wants him to prove that he didn't cheat. The bully agrees and challenges him to a fight without equipment to prove his total innocence. The purple-haired girl steps in and warns him not to fall for the trap because he has nothing to prove. The young man thanks her for her concern but seems to have already made his big decision regarding the challenge. With his sword in hand, he turns around and says he accepts his old rival's challenge right then and there. He thinks he needs to settle this now so the bully won't get in the way of his plan to become stronger. The rival laughs and says it's ridiculous to be challenged by him because he is a very powerful A-rank warrior. With a red aura, he activates his berserker ability and promises to tear off the protagonist's mask. The two face off in the middle of the square, ready for the big showdown that is about to begin. The young man remains unfazed and says the aura is imposing, but he hopes he can maintain it for a long time. The protagonist realizes the rival wants to crush him using the power difference between their classes. But to him, the opponent's class is just a detail and not the greatest source of his true power. He then gets into a fighting stance and warns that the strong are strong even without an advanced class. Without wasting time, the bully charges with his red aura at the young man with all his might. The girl watches and thinks the fight is unfair since an A-rank combat class is fighting a creation one. He just needs to defeat him and remembers that before leaving the base, he fully restored his equipment. That's why he isn't worried and goes barefoot to prove he has no items on him. The rival shouts that it's all fine and charges with a powerful punch, saying this is his end. But to the bully's surprise, the protagonist dodges the attack with impressive ease. He can't believe it and gets even more furious for missing such a sure strike against him. Then the rival launches a sequence of rapid punches, not believing the boy could dodge them all. With agile movements, the protagonist dodges every punch as if it were nothing special. He admits that the A-rank berserker class is indeed very powerful in direct and fast combat. But the young man knows that any attack only truly matters if it manages to hit its primary target. With that, he says that punching blindly only wastes stamina, and that he already knows all his patterns. Then, without hesitation, the protagonist lands a powerful punch right in the middle of his rival's chest. While the enemy is stunned, he points out that the bully could never see through his moves. The aggressor spits and can't believe what just happened right in front of everyone. With the impact of the blow, the young man flies backward and falls to the ground, completely defeated and humiliated. Standing victorious, the young man tells everyone that it seems he is still one level above the rest. The crowd is in shock, unable to believe that an F-rank defeated an A-rank berserker. He then claps his hands and says that since the matter is settled, he won't waste any more time there. As he walks away, he thinks he needs to go to the wild and get some good equipment first. With his modification ability, getting good items won't be a major problem for him now. He then decides to go to the street stalls to buy some basic equipment to modify. But the boy realizes that with the little money he has, even looking at the stalls will be difficult. Suddenly, a fist flies toward him at high speed, trying to catch him by surprise from behind. With his sharp senses, the protagonist notices the attack and prepares to counter it. Without even turning around, he raises his hand and stops the punch with impressive and calm ease. The attacker is Wang Haofeng, who recognizes him as the first place in arts for 3 consecutive years. The purple-haired boy greets him and says he really is impressive and highly skilled. With a smile, he tosses a soda can to his old rival as a gesture of friendship. The purple-haired boy says that if Jiang Yan hadn't defeated him, he would have had to intervene in the fight himself. He then states that the protagonist is the only rival he acknowledges, and not a loser like Yang Hongwei. But the friend notices that the young man didn't use his full strength in the battle against the bully earlier. With this, he remembers the great battle the two had during their freshman year of high school. On that day, the purple-haired boy raised his hand and admitted his defeat fairly in the arena. The protagonist remembers that since that day, his rival has admitted defeat every year without fighting. So he asks if his friend did that to give up the scholarship since he is a wealthy kid. But the boy denies it and says that in truth, he was intimidated by the ruthless eyes of his great rival. Jiang Yan then asks if he will surrender again in this year's National Freshman Tournament. With a determined look, he replies that it's impossible and guarantees he will definitely beat him. With a challenging smile, he promises to fight with everything he has in the next big tournament between them. The two rivals toast with their soda cans, sealing the promise of a future showdown. The friend then tosses him 2 cards and offers 2,000 to buy the Cyclone Wolf speedrun guide. As he walks away, he reminds the protagonist to deliver the guide soon, and the young man saves his contact info. Watching his friend leave, the young man agrees to the proposal and prepares for the next step of his plan. With a smile, he promises he will remember this favor and repay it 10 times over in the future. Now with money in his pocket, he can finally go to the street stalls to buy what he needs. The boy walks through the city, wondering what incredible treasures are waiting for him in the shops. He then arrives at a dark alley known as the Underground Street Market, a place full of secrets. The young man knows it is the cheapest place, but the items are basic, so finding something good is rare. But with his special ability, he is sure that finding a hidden gem isn't impossible. At one of the stalls, he finds a meteorite sword embedded with a Cyclone Wolf crystal. The profile shows that the sword is 60 attack and currently 72% durability. The vendor says the price is 18,000 and that if it were perfect, it would cost 25,000. The young man points to a simple blue steel sword and asks the price, which is 5,000 coins. The blue steel sword is 65 attack and 65% durability. So he proposes a deal. He fixes the meteorite blade, and in return, he takes the steel sword. The vendor is surprised and doubts the young man actually has the skill to make the repair. At that moment, the system announces that the protagonist's durability skill has been activated. With an orb of energy in his hand, he says his goal was always the blue steel sword and not the other one. With a focused look, he prepares to show the power of his creation class to everyone there. After all, with his modify ability, the steel sword can be transformed into a legendary weapon. The man asks what his class is and says that repairing durability is a very delicate task. The young man reveals that his class is an F-rank tinker, a creation class considered quite weak. The vendor is surprised since he himself is a D-rank blacksmith and still struggles with it. He takes the sword and says that even though he understands weapons, he can't guarantee its complete restoration. After all, when a weapon's durability reaches 0, it simply shatters into 1,000 pieces. To repair it, you need to understand the entire structure and magic of the weapon to rebuild it. So he makes a counteroffer. If the repair fails, the boy will have to pay him 18,000. From a distance, the girl watches with concern because not even the S-rank blacksmiths in her family can do such a thing. The protagonist then hands over the sword and tells the vendor to watch very closely what is about to happen. He remembers that in his past life he repaired several A-rank and even S-rank artifacts. Back then, he desperately honed his durability skill so he could do everything better. And now, in this new beginning, that habit has become one of his greatest and most powerful advantages. An intense blue light envelopes the sword as the young man begins the weapon's restoration process. For him, repairing low-level equipment is as easy as taking something out of a bag. The people around are impressed because a simple student showed the skill of a master. The young girl didn't expect him to actually know how to repair equipment when he offered to help. He hands the weapon over and says it's fixed, with the durability now at a total 100%. The vendor apologizes for misjudging him and says the young man is a true and great talent. Fulfilling his part of the deal, the man hands the blue steel sword over to the young student. The protagonist thanks him and thinks that now just needs to change one word to turn it into an artifact. The blue steel sword's profile shows that the quality is E and it has 65 attack and durability. Then he activates his ability, and the steel sword transforms into a King sword, a divine artifact. This is the famous sword of the divine general from ancient legends, a very powerful war hero. Now with a weapon, he can save the 2,000 he earned and use it to pay for college. He remembers that because of the loss of their parents, his younger sister still hasn't gotten over the grief. Although he knows she will be extraordinary in the future, today she is just a very introverted girl. Suddenly, a familiar voice asks if she can hire him to help her level up. It's the purple-haired girl, who offers 50,000 for him to help her reach level 10. Her profile reveals that she is Ya Kexin, an S-rank holy angel who is currently at level 3. Seeing the great opportunity to make good money, the protagonist says he can definitely help her. With a smile, he thinks that money is literally knocking on his door without any effort. The girl then turns to the vendor and asks him to give her the meteorite blade that was repaired. The man says that now with 100% durability, the sword costs 25,000 coins. She then shows a storage ring, and the vendor is shocked by so much wealth right in front of him. Desperate to please the rich young woman, the vendor bows and offers the sword for her to accept. The young man realizes the vendor has never seen rich people and doesn't know that her clothes are already expensive. With her new sword in hand, the young woman prepares to go with the protagonist to the leveling dungeon. He thinks that besides leveling up, he can also use her support skills to get even stronger. The girl then offers the sword she bought to the protagonist as a welcome gift. He is surprised by the gesture and thinks the young heiress is really very polite and kind. Without hesitation, the young man accepts the weapon and thanks her for the kindness she showed at that moment. She is happy and thinks that even with an F-rank class, he has an unlimited future, so she will help him for now. With that, the young man invites her to the novice training base, and the two set off on their adventure. The two then arrive again at the grand and imposing training base for the city's freshmen. With the boy's help, the girl levels up quickly, reaching level 5 in the blink of an eye. Next, they break the rabbit record, and she goes up to level 9 after defeating the big wolf. The system screen announces to everyone that the two broke the time record of the Cyclone Wolf base. Outside, the big screen shows that the duo completed the dungeon on hard mode with a record time. The people are shocked and wonder if it's Jiang Yan breaking records again, and with a girl. One of the students then asks which Yo family the girl could be from, and the others get curious. The answer is that she's from the Dali Chamber of Commerce, one of the 10 largest and richest in the entire nation. In the dungeon, the young woman is exhausted and asks if they can stop for a bit since she is almost at level 10. But the young man at level 13 says she can handle it and that they can rest while walking through the base. He then decides that with an S-rank support by his side, it is time to try something much riskier. The young man takes her to the Hellfire Boar base, the only one with a C-rank danger level for novices. With that, they arrive at the entrance of the Dreaded Boar Dungeon, a very dangerous place for freshmen. An official warns him that the Boar King is much more dangerous than the rabbits and wolves he faced. The protagonist replies that the higher the risk, the greater the opportunity, and that they need to take the chance. Furthermore, having an S-rank support is a rare chance that shouldn't be wasted under any circumstances. The man then simply wishes the duo good luck as the large dungeon gates open. The boy thanks him for the well wishes, and the two enter the new and dangerous dungeon for the final challenge. Already inside the foggy forest, the girl wonders why there aren't any monsters around them. With a confident smile, he explains that in that base there are no mobs, only one single big boss. The young woman is in shock and stutters as she asks if there really is only a single boss in the dungeon. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake and the protagonist warns that the big monster is finally arriving. From the shadows, a gigantic creature emerges in front of them with a truly terrifying size. But he isn't shaken and says that a monster like that is the only one worthy of being his great opponent. The Hellfire Boar glares at the duo with its bright blue eyes and prepares to attack. The Boar King's profile shows that it has a trampling ability and a body that generates a lot of heat. With that, the protagonist warns the girl to be ready to heal him with her holy light during the fight. He knows that to deal with such a strong monster, he needs to take the initiative in the big clash. So, without wasting a second, the boy charges at the great creature with all his speed. Using gravity and rotation, he plans to strike the boar's neck with a single precise blow. But the giant creature moves quickly to dodge the aerial attack that was coming its way. The boar then leaps into the air to avoid the slash to its neck, surprising the young adventurer. He realizes the pig is much smarter than it looked, and that his initial plan completely failed. However, he uses the moment in mid-air to modify his steel sword without the girl noticing anything. With his eyes glowing purple, the protagonist activates his modify ability to turn the tide. He notes that the monster can block the steel sword, but not the powerful King Ong sword he created. The new pseudo-divine weapon is A+ quality and has 300 attack with a passive that ignores armor. The boy thinks that even his divine ability can't ignore the laws of physics to create a real item. But the weapon's power increased 5 times and it even gained armor penetration and agility bonuses. With his new sword in hand, the young man says that now the advantage in the great battle is all his. With a precise and fast strike, he manages to strike off one of the Great Boar King's tusks. The creature lets out a cry of pain while the protagonist and the girl prepare for the next move. Before his partner notices anything, he undoes the modification so as not to reveal his big secret. The young woman is in shock, wondering how an E-rank weapon cut the monster's toughest tusk. She then understands that the strength didn't come from the weapon, but from Zhang Yan himself, who is very powerful. To break so many records with F classes, his martial arts must be far superior to the norm. He notices the girl is imagining strange things, but knows it isn't the time to get distracted. So the boy shouts for her to cast the holy light, because if he defeats the boar, she won't gain any experience. The young woman snaps out of her trance and thanks him for the reminder, casting her holy light ability. With the power of the light enveloping him, now is the time to put a definitive end to the Great Boar King. He thinks that using the modify ability as an instant cast can be a new kind of attack. With this, he wonders if he should try to modify the meteorite blade's name for the next strike. But he knows that if the name is too high, the modification might fail or even turn against him. Suddenly, the Boar King activates his Hellfire charge and runs full speed at the two of them. At the perfect moment, the protagonist says he also wants to end this battle once and for all. The huge creature charges with its blue flames at the protagonist with all its great strength. The boy wonders how he will modify the charge and suddenly gets a great idea for the attack. With a smile, he turns to the girl and asks her to close her eyes for a moment. The young woman is confused by the sudden request and asks what is happening right then. He then tells her to trust him, because she definitely won't want to see what's coming. She assumes the scene will be too intense and agrees to close her eyes, so she won't see what's going to happen. With that, the protagonist prepares and activates his modify ability against the Great Boar King. He then changes Hellfire Charge to Hellfire Damper in an instant. The system announces that the ability modification was activated successfully, and the plan worked. Suddenly, the monster speed drops drastically, and now it no longer poses a threat. With a victorious smile, the young man says it's over and modifies his sword into the powerful Chingang. With a single swift flash of his blade, he charges at the creature for the final blow. The system screen announces to everyone that the Great Hellfire Boar King has finally been defeated. The young man goes up 2 levels at once and is now at level 15, as expected from the strongest boss. The girl goes up 3 levels in a row to level 12, and still with her eyes closed, she asks if he succeeded. He watches her and thinks he made her close her eyes so she wouldn't notice him using his ability. Obedient, wealthy, and with healing power, she is a rare and excellent partner for future team dungeons. The protagonist then tells her that she can open her eyes now, and that the leveling mission she requested is complete. With a bit of hesitation, the young woman slowly opens her eyes to see what happened in front of her. She is shocked to see the creature's fallen body on the ground and can't believe he actually did it. The girl is amazed by the fact that he defeated such a powerful monster entirely on his own. The young man then says the mission is accomplished and that now the two of them can finally leave the place. She observes him and thinks he is a rare talent and a kind person who honors his contracts. The young man turns around upon hearing her voice and wonders what else she could want with him now. The girl offers the promised payment and a small token of her immense gratitude for the big favor. He is shocked when he opens the box and sees that her gift is actually a storage ring. These rings are forged with spatial magic crystals and can defy physics to store items. The boy says the gift is far too valuable and that he can't accept it since it costs hundreds of thousands. But she insists, saying he deserves the reward for helping her go up 2 extra levels. He thinks about how convenient the item will be in the wild to store his things, and then decides to accept. With that, he finally accepts the ring as a fair reward for his excellent work in the dungeon. As compensation, he promises he will do her a favor in the future, as long as it doesn't violate his principles. With the leveling mission finally complete, the two get ready to leave the dungeon and return to the city. Outside, the freshman ranking shows that the competition is fierce, with many S&A rank awakened. Even being in first place, he knows he will soon be caught up, because the others have elite classes. One of them is Li Yufeng, a powerful S-rank sword saint known for being invincible in combat. There is also Zheng Hong, an A-rank fighter, and Lu Yong, a very agile and lethal S-rank wind assassin. The protagonist remembers all these figures from his past life and knows they will be his opponents. With a confident smile, he says he is looking forward to the moment when he will be able to fight them all. But before any big showdown, he knows he has one very important thing to take care of first. With a determined look, the young man decides he needs to make a quick visit to his home as soon as possible. In his past life, he was taken away, and his sister grew up alone in solitude and abandonment. So he says goodbye to the girl and tells her he has things to do, but they might meet again. He remembers that after being taken, he never returned, and news of his sister came from others. In the future, she awakened a powerful A-rank combat class, becoming very strong and feared. But for now, he knows his sister Jiang Yao is still just a normal girl with no powers. She greets him at the door and calls him to eat, being just an introverted high school student. The boy notices she has been like this ever since their parents sacrificed themselves in the dangerous demon lair. He remembers that 3 years ago, when their parents were alive, she was much happier and smiled more. The loss of their parents hit her very hard and completely transformed her since that sad day. Suddenly, while they eat, his sister announces that she is planning to drop out of school for good soon. The protagonist is shocked by the news and, without understanding, asks what the reason for her decision is. He remembers that her grades are great and the college entrance exam is coming up, so he doesn't understand why. She then reveals that she saw the city ranking and that he is in first place among all the freshmen. His sister says he has always been hardworking and that he will become powerful to protect the whole world. As for herself, even with good grades, she feels she wouldn't be of much help to anyone anyway. That's why she thinks it's best to start working early to help with all their household expenses. But he knows that's not the truth and asks her to tell him the real reason for her decision. At that moment, the door opens and a man walks into the house, suddenly calling the girl's name. The newcomer looks embarrassed and asks if he should have come back to the house a bit later. The man explains that his loan company is having difficulties, which is why he came there. This is Uncle Quan, and he is the one the siblings borrowed money from over the past 2 years. With that, the protagonist finally understands the real reason his sister wanted to give up on everything. She saw his high ranking, but since she has no income, she didn't want to be a burden to her brother. The young man realizes she would sacrifice her future so he could go to college. So he turns to the man and asks for the total amount of the debt from the past 2 years. Uncle Quan says that not counting the interest, the debt amount is around 43,000. Without thinking twice, the boy hands him a card with 50,000 to pay off the debt. His sister is shocked and asks where he got so much money all at once. The protagonist knows he needs to explain, but he doesn't want to do it in front of a stranger. Uncle Quan understands the situation and prepares to leave the two siblings' house. Before leaving, he says goodbye and offers his help in case they need anything in the future. The girl then asks if he got the money illegally, showing her concern. He calms her down and says the money was earned with his own skills and there is nothing wrong. With a smile, he promises that he will be first and win the city's 300,000 prize. Therefore, she doesn't need to sacrifice herself so he can go to college and study. With tears in her eyes, she realizes her brother guessed all her thoughts and plans. He then hands her the money and says he has a way to get more but hasn't had the time yet. With a smile, the boy encourages her to study and train hard for what is to come. After all, when he reaches the top, everyone will treat her as the sister of the great city's #1. Moved by her brother's words, the girl starts to cry in his arms out of happiness. She hugs him tightly and promises she will definitely not bring shame to the Jiang family in the future. Now he needs to figure out a way to make money and level up at the same time. Then he remembers there is a great spot to level up outside the zones occupied by humans. That place is the Poison Dragon Valley, a dangerous location but full of great opportunities. The monsters there are very dense, so it is the fastest place for him to level up right now. Legend has it that deep in the valley there are rare dragon-shaped magical beasts. With a dragon egg, his universal grafting ability will finally be very useful to him. Moreover, he might even have the chance to get some magical crystals to sell. The bus finally arrives at the Demon Lair station, and an announcement asks everyone to get off. To go to the wild, he first needs to enter the Demon Lair and cross it. The Nanrong city of the Demon Lair is separated from the real city by a single passage. Inside the lair is the human fortress, one of the defensive bridges against the beast invasion. The city is overseen by two level 70 venerables who forced him to help them in the past. As soon as they enter, most people already put on their equipment to prepare for combat. But compared to the ring he got, the price of all those items isn't even worth looking at. He then arrives at the East Gate, the closest place to the Poison Dragon Valley he wants to go to. The valley is the safest place among the explored ones, with monsters between levels 13 and 18. For him right now, this is the most suitable place to level up and get even stronger. At the entrance, he hands over his student ID with his farmer and tinker classes. The guard questions if he is sure about going alone, because out in the wild people can easily perish. The young man thanks him for his concern and, with his ID in hand, promises he will come back alive. The guard thinks he can't let the boy walk to his demise, even if he has 2 F classes. So he tries to stop him from entering the wild, but the protagonist is much faster than him. With a quick movement, the young man dodges the guard's hand and keeps moving forward without looking back. The man is shocked because he didn't expect the boy to be able to dodge him, given that he is a level 30 awakened. But one of the other guards tells him that is Jiang Yan, the boy who broke all the records. He also reminds him that the young man is first in arts and a strong candidate for top scorer of the year. The guard wonders how a dual F rank awakened can be so strong, and if something doesn't seem right. Already inside the valley, the protagonist prepares to face all the dangers that await him there. The only problem with the place is that it is full of poisonous gas, making antidote pills essential. With pills being expensive and short-lasting, he needs to hurry because his biggest issue is a lack of money. Suddenly, a group of level 13 green winged bats comes flying his way. With a smile, he says he has been waiting for them for a long time and prepares for the attack. Without wasting time, the young man advances with his 2 swords and begins to strike down every bat he sees. With just 3 defeated monsters, he gets almost 3% progress on his level. He is satisfied with the result and realizes the monsters in the wild yield much more experience. Now he will speed up his leveling by activating his powerful modify ability for the big hunt. Walking through the forest with his glowing sword, he prepares for the next wave of monsters. With the steel sword modified into Qinghong, he warns that now it is his time to really hunt. With his sword shining, he charges at the creatures and defeats them, gaining a lot of experience. Taking down several vultures and toads, he rapidly levels up and reaches level 18 in the wild. Exhausted, he sits down to rest and drinks some water to recover his lost energy. While drinking water, he complains about his bad luck since he hasn't gotten any magical crystals so far. Suddenly, he senses someone's presence and turns to see who is approaching him there. He recognizes Lu Yuan, the S-rank awakened from Nanrong School number 7 with his companion. The boy is the young master of the Lu family, an elite awakened family from the great city of Nanrong. The lackey approaches arrogantly and asks if the protagonist is deaf for not answering. Unfazed, he replies sarcastically, asking if the lackey was the one who defeated the monsters. The follower gets furious and threatens him, asking if he knows who he is talking to at that moment. But Lu Yuan interrupts him and invites the boy to join them since his skills aren't bad. The protagonist turns down the offer and walks away, thinking they just want to steal his experience. The lackey is furious and asks why his master didn't let him teach the arrogant boy a lesson. Lu Yuan says that for a dual F rank to make it there alone, he must really be a great talent. With an evil smile, he promises that the next time they meet, the lackey will get his chance. With only 1 antidote pill left, he needs to find more toads to reach level 18. An hour later, he regrets not finding any rare monsters like the rumored dragons. He knows about the rumors regarding dragon-type magical beasts, but so far he hasn't seen any sign of them. Suddenly, something strikes his sword hard, catching him completely by surprise in the dark forest. With a quick spin, he manages to defend himself from the ambush attack by an unknown creature. He turns around and sees a small purple creature that tried to attack him stealthily from behind. The boy is shocked because his powerful Qinghong sword couldn't pierce the strange creature. The creature then jumps away and prepares for a new attack against the young adventurer. The great level 20 Demon Toad King appears with its shape-shifting and constriction abilities. Finally, he found a boss, and with a smile, he warns that he is going to take its magical crystal. The toad then uses its giant tongue constriction ability to attack the protagonist with full force. The toad's tongue splits into several parts and attacks the boy from all sides with great speed. But he has already figured out a way to break that ability and prepares for a counterattack. With his skill, he changes giant tongue constriction to giant tongue torrent. With the change, the toad's tongue wraps around itself, trapping it completely in a knot. With the toad trapped, the boy moves in for the final attack and promises to end the creature's run. He strikes the monster's head with his sword, but the blow can't pierce its thick skin. The protagonist is surprised because he couldn't break the defense of the great Demon Toad King. The creature then activates its ice skin ability and massively increases its personal defense. The system announces that the modification failed because the target exceeds the protagonist's level and everything reverts. The young man gets annoyed for failing at such a crucial moment in the intense and difficult battle. That is the downside of his ability. The duration is short against targets of a higher level than him. Free from its own tongue, the creature attacks the boy with a quick and powerful strike out of nowhere. The protagonist manages to defend himself in time and prepares for his enemy's next move. Without many options, he realizes he will have to take a huge gamble to win this fight. So he activates his Modify ability on the meteorite blade for his grand final attack. An intense, colorful light wraps around the sword as it transforms into something much more powerful. With this, the meteorite blade turns into the dreaded and powerful blade of the Great Demon King. A dark red energy wraps around the new weapon while the boy grips it firmly in his hand. A mysterious voice asks who is summoning him, and the weapon's profile appears with hidden attributes. The young man realizes the weapon is unstable, and that he needs to hurry to defeat the Toad King. With his new blade, he charges for the final attack against the creature with all his massive strength. With a single strike, the sword strikes the toad down in a burst of dark red energy. Exhausted, the protagonist leans on the weapon to catch his breath after the grand and difficult battle. The weapon is truly terrifying, and a single strike was enough to drain all of his stamina. Suddenly, the blade begins to corrode his body, and he realizes the grave danger he is in. Feeling the pain of the corrosion, he tries to activate his Modify ability to reverse the process. But his stamina is completely drained, and he falls to the ground without the strength to do anything else. The voice in the sword says that whoever dares take its power will have to pay the price for such great audacity. Even though its true body cannot descend, just 1/10 of its power is already enough. But the protagonist says he already expected this and prepares for the next step in his plan. He then says it's not the first time he's modified the Demon King's blade and gets up. The voice becomes furious and calls him scum for daring to challenge it in such a direct and bold manner. With his steel sword, he strikes the eye of the Demon King's blade to break its great curse. An explosion of red energy occurs, and the boy manages to free himself from the weapon's control. The Demon King's consciousness screams that it will get revenge and seal his soul in the dark abyss forever. Exhausted, the protagonist falls to the ground next to the now inert blade after the intense mental battle. He realizes that by piercing the Demon King's consciousness, he managed to stop the erosion on his body. Now he just needs to recover his stamina so he can change the weapon's name back, and it will all be over. Sitting down to rest, he remembers that a similar situation had already happened in his past life. That time, the enemy was the ninth Demon King Revishame, a much more dangerous being than this one. It was because of that accident that he learned that attacking the consciousness inside the weapon is the correct method. He then wonders if these powerful creatures are from the demon lair or somewhere else. The young man becomes curious if these demon kings come from other worlds even more terrifying and dark. Fully recovered, he stands up and says it is now time to finally collect all of his great loot. He then activates the loot ability and changes the Demon King's blade into a powerful new weapon. With a smile, he says the Demon Toad King is a boss, and he hopes it won't disappoint him now. Suddenly, a large purple magical crystal appears in front of the boy as his grand reward. The crystal from a level 20 boss is worth at least 100,000 and is a massive profit for him. Furthermore, the remains of the monsters he defeated are excellent materials and can be sold. He decides he will sell everything on the black market when he returns to the city to make more profit. The boy remembers that he leveled up after defeating the Great Demon Toad King and opens his status. The system announces that he defeated the Toad King and an unknown creature, gaining a lot of experience. With that, he goes up 2 levels in a row and wonders if the creature was the demon's eye from the sword. He thinks about exploiting a bug by summoning and taking down the eye to reach level 100 all at once. But he knows that if he makes a single mistake, the entire city will have to be reset along with him. That's why he decides it's better not to take such a huge risk and gives up on the crazy idea. The young man remembers that every 10 levels he gains a new innate ability and is looking forward to it. He gains the Dismantle ability to obtain materials and Plague immunity to protect himself. With a smile, he thinks the Plague immunity skill can be turned into Damage immunity. Even with many restrictions, Damage immunity is a highly useful skill in critical moments. With his mission accomplished and stronger than before, he decides it's time to finally head back. As he runs through the forest, he leaps between the trees with his enhanced agility and great lightness. Suddenly, he sees the lackey of Lu Yuan, the young master of the Lu family, and wonders what he is doing there. The follower stares at him with his dagger in hand, ready for a showdown in the middle of the dark forest. The lackey Lu Tao, a B-rank assassin class, calls him a loser and says he finally found him. In the blink of an eye, the rogue charges with his daggers at the protagonist with great speed. With his extreme speed ability, he increases his agility by 30% for the attack. The lackey believes he got him and wonders why an F-class would dare to fight a combat class. But the protagonist dodges the attack with a simple spin and calls him annoying and dull. With a quick and precise counterattack, the young man lands a solid hit on the rogue and knocks him away. Lying on the ground, the lackey can't believe the boy's speed is even greater than his own. He then realizes the boy pulled the sword from a storage ring and is even more shocked. The lackey doesn't understand how an underperformer like him can have an item as expensive as a storage ring. The protagonist explains that training and combat awareness also affect a warrior's strength. He then turns around and realizes the rogue doesn't have the strength to fight, and that only his master could provide it. With a swift motion, he prepares for another attack against the lackey who is on the ground. But suddenly, a leaf slices the air and stops the boy's strike with impressive precision. He turns and sees that the lackey's master has indeed shown up for the confrontation as he expected. The two stare at each other, and Lu Yuan advances with his blade at the protagonist with all his might. The purple-haired boy praises his opponent's sword, and the two prepare for the great duel. The protagonist also praises his rival's blade, and the two face off with their weapons drawn. With a leap backward, they distance themselves and prepare for the start of the great battle that is approaching. Lu Yuan then challenges him and asks to witness the strength of the number one on the freshman ranking. The young man smiles and says it seems the rival isn't convinced of his position on the freshman ranking. With that, he proposes a bet where the loser will have to hand over their weapon to the grand winner. The opponent accepts the bet and activates his S-rank win aura, which increases his agility by 80. The protagonist smiles and says he will gladly accept his rival's blade as the prize of the bet. With a purple aura, Loon says his class destined him to be the fastest of all. At that moment, the duel begins with the rival moving at high speed with his blade drawn. The protagonist manages to block the attack and admits that the speed of an S-class is absurd. In the distance, the lackey watches the fight and shouts for his master to take down the opponent once and for all. The opponent believes that having an F-class makes the young man too slow and no match for him. With a purple glow on his weapon, the boy prepares a final strike to end it all. Suddenly, a loud sound of impact echoes through the forest, indicating that the strike landed. But to everyone's surprise, the protagonist's hand catches the rival's blade at the very last second. Loon is in shock, and the young man says he finally managed to catch him in the middle of the great battle. With a smirk, Jiang Yan warns that the winner has already been decided at that moment. The rival realizes his opponent never wanted to compete in speed and acknowledges his strength. With a dark smile, the young master of the Lu family thinks the fight just got interesting. He knows he can trade one injury for another, and that he can make a sacrifice to survive. Holding the rival's weapon, the protagonist praises his courage to abandon the blade to escape. Observing his opponent, the young man admits that his combat experience is very impressive. He then throws the weapon away and asks how the opponent is going to fight without his gear. Calmly, the rival reveals that he likes those swords and always keeps 3 in his ring. The protagonist remembers that his opponent is wealthy and that a B-rank weapon is nothing to him. Because of that, he thinks that defeating a young master makes the victory even more satisfying. The rival says he is the first in the class to see this ability and gets ready to attack. A screen shows the Fear Scale / technique, which deals 150 damage. With that, Loon fires an X-shaped wave of energy toward the protagonist. The young man jumps to dodge and understands that this is the true power of a combat class. While running, he realizes that every innate ability can give a huge boost in the fight. He keeps dodging and thinks that his class rival is ridiculously strong. But he notices that the strike is not that fast and that using the wind aura drains a lot of stamina. So he hides and decides that his chance is a decisive strike since he cannot use his technique. Meanwhile, the master of the Lu family searches for his opponent in the dense forest. Holding his 2 daggers, he comments that his rival hid and that it was a wise decision. But shortly after, an immense purple aura surrounds him as he prepares his next move. With that, he fires a massive wave of purple energy and asks what the rival will do with nowhere to hide. The powerful energy blast charges forward and destroys a large part of the surrounding forest. As the dust settles, the master of the Lu family looks around, searching the area for his opponent. With a sweaty face, he is in disbelief and wonders if his opponent simply vanished. At that moment, the young man has a shocked look upon realizing that something strange is happening there. Looking up, he spots a shadow and shouts that he found him as he attacks with his blade. But the strike only hits a tree stump, leaving the young man confused as he notices the trap. Right behind him, the protagonist appears and declares his victory, leaving the rival shocked for having been tricked. The opponent is impressed by the use of the terrain and wonders how strong he would be with an A class. But he thinks that despite everything, the boy is just an F rank while he is a powerful S rank. With that, he activates a wind shield and says he cannot be defeated in such a simple way. Surprised, the young man notices that his rival passed level 20, giving him a new innate ability. But the young man warns that his Kingang sword is also not something to be underestimated in the great battle. The protagonist's glowing blade collides with the shield and begins to create cracks in the purple defense. He then shouts that even with the shield, his opponent won't be able to withstand such a strong attack. With a heavy impact, the rival's purple defense is completely shattered by the strike of his sword. Landing on the ground after the attack, the protagonist watches the dust rising from the impact. With a serious look, he wonders if he should continue, as the fight hasn't reached a critical point. He remembers that in the past, Lu Yuan was not a bad person and led his family against the monsters. Meanwhile, on the other side, Lu Yuan is on the ground, coughing heavily due to his major injury. Even exhausted, he thinks he hasn't lost yet and that he needs to strike his opponent no matter what. The young man can't believe that with an S class, he was pushed to such a desperate situation by an F rank. Despite wondering how an F rank is so strong, he believes his potential is still greater. Watching from afar, the young master sees the protagonist walking toward him slowly. With his dagger in hand, the boy tenses up and prepares for the moment his rival will arrive. But instead of attacking, the protagonist simply extends his hand in a gesture of peace to his rival. Not understanding anything, the young man from the Lu family just stares at the extended hand with a doubtful look. With that, Jiang Yan says it was a tie and praises his rival, telling him he is very strong. Still on the ground, the opponent asks the meaning of the boy's unexpected gesture. The young man explains that he is an opponent worthy of attention, and that is why the fight ends in a draw. Lu Yuan understands that this is a gesture of acknowledgement, and that they are both equally strong. With a smile, the boy thanks him for teaching the lesson that there is always someone stronger. With that, the two shake hands, sealing the end of the great and intense battle between them. Lu Yuan admits his rival's strength and promises to defeat him fairly in the next tournament. The protagonist smiles and warns him to train hard, or he will no longer be worthy of being his opponent. In the distance, the lackey shouts furiously at the boy for daring to hurt his master like that. But Lu Yuan stops him and orders him to respect the young man the same way he respects him. The boy then promises that next time he will fight with everything he has and emerge as the grand winner. Meanwhile, the protagonist turns around and continues his way through the dark and dangerous forest. With a smile, the young man thinks about his rival's promise to fight at full strength in the future. He knows that if the rival shouts the name of the technique, he will have already lost because he can modify it. The boy scratches his head and laments that after such a big battle, he got no reward. Sighing, he remembers that he returned his rival's sword and feels like he worked for nothing in the end. Suddenly, a strange green light in the forest catches his attention, pointing to a new mystery. He remembers his rival's strike and realizes that the attack revealed something that was previously invisible. The boy notices it's a poisonous gas and decides to check it out in the hopes of finding a new boss. The system shows that his ability was modified to grant poison immunity for 20 minutes. With this new technique, the young man thinks he'll be able to save a lot of money on antidote pills. The boy then walks toward the smoke, wondering what is hidden inside. Arriving at the scene, he sees a large toxic lake with smoke rising from its center. With that, the boy wonders if the legendary poison dragon might be in that mysterious lake. Without wasting time, the young man dives in and notices that for now, there are only small monsters in the area. But in the depths of the lake, a giant silhouette with red eyes appears to attack. The creature reveals itself to be a level 18 ice armor crocodile and charges at him. As expected, the boy knew there were large monsters in the water and gets ready for combat. The massive crocodile charges with everything, and the boy says that since it came to his door, he will gladly accept its materials while he prepares his sword for a powerful surprise attack. With the armor penetration effect, his sword pierces through the creature with a blue glow. Seeing the monster's giant body, he realizes that his storage ring cannot hold it. So he decides it is the perfect time to test his new item, dismantling ability. The screen shows his dismantle technique, which acquires items and has a 10% chance of dropping a rare item. With a smile, the young man activates his new ability to test the power he just obtained. At that, the crocodile's body transforms into several blue data cubes floating in the air. Right after, the cubes explode in a bright flash of light, revealing the newly acquired materials. The first item is an E-rank crocodile bone that can be used to craft a new weapon. He also gets some crocodile meat, but it is useless and tastes very bad. On the other hand, the monster's skin is an excellent D-rank material that offers ice-type resistance. The protagonist likes the skin and decides to store it in his ring to use in the future. After storing the items, the boy looks around and notices something strange in the lake's environment. He realizes he accidentally arrived at the place where the special poisonous smoke was coming from. Curious, the young man decides to take a look to see exactly what is in that place. Swimming deeper, he spots the entrance of a large cave glowing with a green light. He notices that the terrain has been affected by the toxins and wonders if his luck is good. Inside the cave, the boy walks among several giant and glowing green crystals. Hiding behind one of the crystals, his face looks shocked at what he finds there. He sees a level 43 female poison dragon sleeping next to 2 eggs. The boy is amazed that it's a dragon already laying eggs even in its growth phase. Being a legendary beast, he knows that when she grows up, she will reach level 70. Besides, with his universal grafting ability, the power limit could be even higher. He decides to wait for a chance to steal the eggs and avenge the humans who perished there. Suddenly, a loud noise in the water draws the young man's attention to a new danger in the area. Startled by the sound, the boy wonders what that huge commotion in the water could be. At that moment, another giant dragon flies in the cave with immense speed and power. Hidden, the protagonist realizes that, as he expected, there is also a male dragon there. The place is no longer safe, and he decides to return when he is strong enough to defeat the 2 dragons. Emerging from the water, the boy realizes that his goal is now even clearer than before. With a determined smile, he promises to get stronger to obtain the dragon eggs. After all, with his power, he would be the top scorer in Nanrong City without any rival. For now, he decides to go to the black market to sell the materials and get some money. With that, the scene takes us to the vast underground black market of Nanrong City. This is the black market of Nanrong City, a place rumored to be watched over by a grandmaster. Because of that, as long as no major trouble happens around here, things run smoothly. The authorities don't usually intervene, which makes many transactions and shady dealings easier. The boy then arrives at a shop he remembers to be the most reliable one from his past life. Inside is the boss of the Jinyu Pavilion, a very elegant woman named Kyunyu. At the counter, 2 men ask the boss to raise the price of their goods a little more. Smoking her pipe, she says the price she offered is already the highest on the whole street. At that, the woman notices the protagonist and asks if a student like him also has something to sell. The two men look at him with contempt and doubt that a poorly dressed kid has anything good. One of them gets annoyed and tells the young man to leave so he won't interrupt their business there. With a calm look, he agrees that he has nothing good while showing his glowing ring. The men are in shock upon recognizing the storage ring and are amazed by the expensive item. The young man then extends his hand with his glowing ring and says that's probably all there is. With a blue glow, he summons dozens of monster items and materials in front of everyone. Seeing the pile of items, the two men drop their jaws, unable to believe what just happened. The boss recognizes the crocodile skin and wonders if he went to the deepest part of the valley. With a smile, the boy summons a large purple magic crystal and says he also has that. The two men panic when they see such a rare and valuable magic crystal right in front of them. The shop boss is even more impressed and wonders about the boy's background. With a calm look, the protagonist asks the woman to calculate the value of all the items. He then turns to the two men and tells her to hurry up because he doesn't want to hold them up. In a VIP room, the boss informs him that the total is $238,500. With that, the woman slides a VIP card across the table and says all the money is on it. The boy takes the card and says that since she was straightforward, he won't beat around the bush either. The scene shows a close-up of both their hands as the young man takes his payment card. The boss lets him know that the gold card makes him a VIP client and offers 10% more. Standing up, the protagonist thanks Boss Kyun for the kindness she showed him. As he leaves, he thinks that the boss is fair, and that's why he chose to negotiate directly with her. He understands that the VIP treatment he received is a sign that she values his potential. With the money in hand, the boy finally leaves the shop and heads back to the market streets. Leaving the shop, the silhouettes of two men watch the young man walking away with his money. But he knows that capable people are welcome anywhere and goes on his way. After all, to have priority on resources, he needs to be the top scorer in the city. The two men then decide to teach the boy a lesson for showing off his great wealth. Now in an alley, the boy thinks that with the money he earned, he can finally get some armor. He knows that having only 2 weapons at hand is not safe enough for his plans. With a smile, the protagonist realizes that, as he expected, he is already being followed by the two. However, he had already foreseen all of that, and a smirk shows that he is prepared. The boy remembers they smelled like human blood and that their bags contained stolen items. Because of that, he thinks dealing with the two will just be a way to build up good karma. The men follow him and think he chose a good resting place by entering a deserted alley. But the young man turns around and says they were slow, as he had been waiting for a long time. The two reveal their combat classes and warn that he will be the next on their target list. With a mocking tone, the protagonist pretends to be afraid of their combat classes. The thug gets angry and asks where he looks scared, and his partner notices the mockery. With a smirk, the young man confirms he is making fun of both of them without any fear. One of them becomes furious and charges in for an attack with a multi-strike ability. Right after, the other thug activates his technique and coats his blade with a powerful poison. The protagonist then decides it is time to use his ability on humans for the first time. The system shows that the slash technique was modified to turn against its own user. With that, the man starts taking strikes uncontrollably and screams, not understanding what is happening. His partner is in shock and calls out for his boss upon seeing the bizarre scene in front of him. Then, the system shows that the other technique was modified to poison the user himself. The second attacker's face gets covered in purple marks as he feels the poison taking effect. He then falls to the ground and wonders why he suddenly poisoned himself. Seeing the two on the ground, the boy asks if their attack is finally over. With his face in the shadows, he announces that it is now his turn to attack and finish the fight. With his sword in hand, he recalls that the two have committed many evil deeds in the past. Therefore, he warns that the time for payback has finally come for the two thugs. On the ground, a wanted poster reveals that the two men were B-rank fugitives. With the wanted poster, he finds it curious that the thugs themselves carry their own posters. He throws the poster away since he won't turn them in and draw too much attention to himself right now. Looking through the bag, he finds a piece of armor that could be very useful to him. The screen shows it is a wolf skin coat that gives 30 defense and 10 agility. Even though he finds it ordinary, he decides to activate his ability to turn trash into treasure. With that, the system announces that the wolf skin coat was modified into a Kulin coat. The new armor has 260 defense and 110 agility, a massive upgrade. Putting on his new coat, he notices that modifying into legendary names brings incredible results. On the back, the coat has an embroidery of a poison Kulin, which despite not being strong is good. He then decides to go back home to surprise his sister before the exam. With his new look, the young man says it is his turn to impress everyone with his power. At his house, his sister is studying and wonders what the 4th strongest magical beast in the world is. The boy then arrives full of bags and asks his sister for help, who looks at him not understanding. She takes the bags and asks where he got all those things at once. The girl also notices her brother's new clothes and realizes it looks like armor. With a smile, he says he earned everything through his abilities and that he is going to increase her allowance. The girl says she doesn't need it and that 50 yuan is already enough for her to get by. He disagrees and says that starting that month, her allowance will be 500 to help out. With the money in hand, the young girl gets worried and asks if he hasn't done anything wrong. He calms her down and tells her not to worry, because the following day is his college entrance exam. The protagonist promises that when he gets back at night, he will take her out to eat at a nice place. Curious, his sister questions him and asks what level he has managed to reach so far. He replies that he is merely level 20, leaving the girl shocked by the revelation. He thinks about how the exam takes place 1 month after the awakening of the new adventurers' classes. During this period, regular students reach level 15, and the most talented reach level 20. As for surpassing level 20, only the strongest from influential families stand a chance. He only managed to reach level 20 by accident when he defeated the clone of the powerful Demon King. Because of that, he knows that without prioritizing resources, everything would be much harder for him. But he is certain that when he becomes the best, everything will be completely different. On top of a building, he looks at the city and says the college exam awaits him.